Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pleasant Grove United Methodist Church. It's good to be with you again. Today, I wanted to talk about a subject that's been preying on my heart a little bit, and it's about it's hard to love everyone. This is hard for me. Even when I'm driving in the car, I find myself shaking my fist at the next driver. We tend to judge people in so many different ways that we shouldn't be judging people. We judge them by the color of their skin, by their religion, by the clothes they wear, by their race, by their culture, by their thoughts. We even argue with people over sports. And not just argue, we get mad at folks. We live in a day and age, for some reason, instead of compromising and wanting to love each other, we got to be right. We got to get the last word in. It's just that's just the way it is today, and it's a shame. It really is. Our Bible verse today comes from Matthew chapter 22, verses 35 through 40, and this is Jesus speaking here. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second greatest commandment is love your neighbor as yourself." The two greatest commandments that Jesus gives us is love him and love your neighbor. That doesn't mean pick out somebody, just a certain few people to love. It means to love everyone, not just your neighbor down the road. There's two Bible stories that come to mind. One is the stoning of the adulteress, or the attempted stoning of the adulteress. The people asked Jesus to take part in this, and Jesus looked at them and said, "Ye without sin cast the first stone." Each one dropped their stones and turned and walked away, and then Jesus told the lady to go forth and not sin anymore. The Good Samaritan. There was a man that was beaten and left for dead on the side of the road, stripped of his clothing. A Jewish priest walked by and just kept walking, didn't stop to help. Then a Levite came by and didn't stop to help. And finally, the Good Samaritan saw the man in need and stopped and gave him aid. We do that so many times today. How many times do we may be going to see a certain person to bring them food or something and walk right by somebody else in need and never give it a second thought. Just little things like that. My grandfather once told me, if you treat a person with respect, kindness, and a smile, that generally you'll get the same treatment back. Now, you may have to do that over and over with certain people, but sooner or later, they will give you the same love and kindness back that you gave to them in the first place. And I found that throughout my life to be more often than not a true thing. When Diane and I moved into our neighborhood about 11 years ago, about a year later, there was another couple that moved in about 5 houses down, Jim and Clara. Now, Jim's about 8 years older than me, and Clara, believe it or not, is 10 years older than Jim. So we regarded them as just older folks. We knew that he owned a business in town. We'd drive by their home, and we'd see them out in the yard, but we didn't speak to them, they didn't speak to us. We just drove by there was just people there. And this went on for 5 or 6 years. Jim was the type of person, he just seemed stoic to me. I just didn't figure I would like him. And there's no telling what he thought of me. About 4 years ago, Jim was elected president of our association board, and I was chosen as the vice president. So here we are, thrown together, had never spoken to each other. And for the last 4 years, we have become very, very close friends. There's really rarely a day goes by that I don't talk to Jim. Uh, Diane and I go out and eat with he and Clara. We found that we got a lot in common with them. We found that they're very funny and personable. We just didn't know them. We didn't try to get to know them. We just didn't, and that happens so often in our world. We get into a comfort zone and we don't want to get out of it, and we don't want to meet new people. And it's a shame because you lose out on so much by doing that. Jesus wants us to reach out and love everyone. When I was a college student, my second year at ASU, I was majoring in radio TV. And I was assigned to broadcast a basketball game. But let me back up first. There was this family in Lake City, and they were a rough bunch of customers. That was their persona. The oldest son, Jimmy, I've got a lot of Jims in the story today. His name was Jimmy. Jimmy was the school bully. He was about 5 feet 10, 175 pounds, solid as a rock, strong as an ox. If you looked at an old Western movie, Jimmy would have been one of the villains, one of the bad guys with the black hat, with the scowl on his face. He was always picking fights. He didn't have any friends. No one wanted to be around him. No one liked him. And he seemed to like that. Everybody was afraid of him. Nobody wanted any part of Jimmy. So fast forward to my college days, and I went back to my home school, Lake City, to broadcast the game. I was running a little bit late, walk in the gym, and it's packed. And so the area that I had to broadcast the game was up what I would call the crow's nest in the corner of the gym. And my pathway to get up there was blocked by so many people. And I look up, and amongst those people standing right in my way is who but Jimmy. Of all people, I'm thinking, oh, how could I be so unlucky? Because let me tell you a little bit how tough this family was. One day in high school, Jimmy got called to the principal's office. His little sister walks by and sees him in trouble. She proceeds to go in there, grabs a folding chair, and hits the principal over the head with it. Now, this is the little sister. This is not tough Jimmy. These people you didn't mess with. And nobody wanted to be around them. So here I am, needing to get up there. Jimmy sees me with my hands full of equipment, and he looks at me and he says, "Do you need to get up there?" And I said, "Yeah, Jim, I do." I said, "I'm going to broadcast this game." So he takes part of my equipment and then tells everybody to move out of my way. This man needs to go up there and broadcast this game. So he leads me up through all the people. We get up there. He proceeds to help me set up all my equipment. Asked me if there was anything else, and I said, "Well, I really appreciate you helping me, Jimmy." He said, "No problem." He said, "Anything else I can do?" I said, "I need that cord plugged up down there if you don't care. I'd be glad to do it." So he cracked the first smile I ever saw him crack. I thanked him again. He goes down there. At the end of the night, I thanked him as I was going out the door. Now, I don't know if I can't recall ever seeing Jimmy since then. I don't know what happened to him, but I do believe this. I don't think in his entire life up until that night, he'd had very many people say a kind word to him. But Jimmy, I think the biggest problem with and a lot of his brothers and sisters, they just needed somebody to show them that they were needed, that they needed some kindness shown to them. Jimmy felt important that night, that he was doing something, helping somebody else, and I've never forgotten that. And I just thought back, man, if he had just been shown some respect and kindness along the way, maybe he wouldn't have been the school bully all those years. I don't know. I've got 3 songs that I researched that talk about loving other people and about how other people might feel, and that we don't try to understand that. The first one is from a songwriter by the name of Joe South. Joe was from Georgia, a southern boy, and he wrote several big hits. Some of you might remember some of them. Billy Joe Royal's Down in the Boondocks was a #1 hit that he wrote. He wrote Lynn Anderson's I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. He wrote Deep Purple's Hush. He wrote and sang Games People Play. But probably his most famous song was one that he did himself, Walk a Mile in My Shoes. And the lyrics to this go like as follows. If I could be you, if you could be me for just 1 hour, if we could find a way to get inside each other's mind, if you could see through my eyes instead of your ego, I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Walk a mile in my shoes. Before you abuse, criticize, and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. Now there are people on reservations and out in the ghetto, and brother, there, but for the grace of God, go you and I. If I only had the wings of a little angel, don't you know I'd fly to the top of the mountain and then I'd cry. And you think about that for a minute. You don't know what another person's going through until you try to walk in their shoes. They don't know what you're going through. You know, teachers out there, and I was a teacher, you'd always have this one kid that would give you trouble. It always happened. And usually the reason he did it wasn't because he was a bad kid or he was a mean kid. It was because he needed attention. He needed to be loved, and he needed someone to pay attention to him, to his life. And that's the way it is with a lot of folks. Another lyric that I looked at was Rodney Crowell's Shame on the Moon. Bob Seger made this a #1 song. One of the verses in it says, until you've been beside a man, you don't know what he wants. You don't know if he cries at night. You don't know if he don't. Where nothing comes easy, old nightmares are real. Until you've been beside a man, you don't know how he feels. And then the last one is a song that was written by Paul Simon for Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Art Garfunkel sang it so beautifully. Paul Simon took a verse out of this from an old Baptist hymnal I saw. And the lyrics go like this. When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. I'm on your side when times get rough and friends just can't be found. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when the evening falls so hard, I will comfort you. I'll take your part when darkness comes and pain is all around. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Those lyrics could be Jesus, couldn't it? Jesus always lays it all on the line for us. And as the verses in Matthew says, he expects us to do the same thing for our fellow man. It's his commandment to us to love one another and be kind and respectful, and not just the people that we know, the people that we don't know. I'll leave you with this thought today. Jesus, when the end comes for us, he's not looking at what color we were, what race we were, what political viewpoint we had, or anything like that. He's not looking at our clothes, our wealth. He strips us down to our heart and soul, and that's what he eventually looks at in the end, how we lived our lives. We will be judged not on how we judge others, but on how we love others.